Hey everyone, welcome to Software Sales Simplified, Move to Success, the podcast for software sales professionals who want to sell better. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, make Software Sales Simplified your go-to resource for actionable insights and real-world strategies. Join us right here where you get your favorite podcasts, and we'll move to success together. I'm your host, Matt Long, joined by my esteemed colleague, Kevin Donville.
I'm esteemed now, yes.
Very esteemed. Together, we have over 50 years of enterprise software selling experience, and we just wrote a book that outlines our approach to sales. That's called Winning Faster, the Move Framework for Enterprise Sales Success. You can find a link to it in our podcast description. So, Kevin, what are we going to talk about today? Actually, before we do that, let me ask you, you just celebrated a birthday. So, happy birthday.
Thank
you. And how did that go?
It was a lot of fun. Birthdays, I remember ever since I was probably about 8 years old, I started calling them my annual reminder of my own mortality. I didn't have a lot of friends.
You're one of those kids.
Yeah. I was goth before goth was a thing. But it was really fun. I got to spend some fun time with my kids. They took me out for a couple of dinners and happy hour, and got to go check out a movie and hang out with some of my friends online. And it was a wonderful weekend from start to finish. Yeah.
So let's what are we going to talk about today?
We're going to talk about demos today. Specifically,
demos, my favorite.
Yes, about more about how they relate to winning deals and how you can be winning more deals. And it's 2025. It's the really first part of the year, and everybody's doing get ready for their spring cleaning and picking things up around their own personal lives. Kind of a good idea. Let's talk about in the enterprise sales world, let's talk about demos and how people could be doing some spring cleaning there and making those better.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, demos are used and abused throughout the enterprise sales cycle, right? And the worst is, hey, just show them a demo, right? Just get them interested, see if, and just show them how it works, right? And which is absolute worst thing that could happen, because you never know what their interests are. It means lack of discovery. And the chances are you could actually show them something that will qualify you out in their mind without even realizing it. So, we've spent a lot of time doing demos, building demos, training how to do demos. So I this is a topic near and dear to my heart and yours as well, I know.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, first off, I like to start with stories. So let's just talk. Do you have a story in mind about the demo? Probably that went bad, I'm guessing, as opposed to went good.
Oh, I got a lot of good stories about ones that went good too. But when you were talking about some of the things you were just mentioning in the preamble there about it, I remember a demo that I went to when I was running pre-sales, but through whatever miscommunications that happened on their part, pre-sales person was on vacation, salesperson was left alone, but had not made any arrangements for any coverage of that particular demo. So I get a call an hour before the demo is about to go live, and I get the classic, just give them the demo statement, right? And I'm like, great, I'm going to have to do more of a demo by discovery, which, that's a whole tactic of asking questions as you go along. Let me go prep some stuff up and I'll see you in the demo. So I go into this demo, I start giving my presentation, and I'm asking questions as I'm going along the way, but I'm not getting very good engagement from the prospect. I get about 30 minutes into an hour demo, and I asked one of the questions like, so will this be helping your team, blah, blah, blah. And the person just looks at me completely dead, cold stare and goes, we don't do any of this. I'm sitting there like you feel the anxiety coming up in your chest, right? And I'm like, what do you mean you don't do any of this? He goes, well, you keep showing us a website, and we have a mobile application. That's all we have. We don't have a website, or we have one, but we don't do anything on it. Nobody cares about it, and that's not my group. Do you have anything that can do mobile applications? Now, the thing was, we absolutely did have a tool that could do that, but I hadn't been prepped for that. That's not what I was prepared to show. That's not what the salesperson has showed in their introduction. And so we fell flat on our faces and trying to recover for the next 20, 30 minutes of that demo to try and show through slideware and analogy what was possible. If I had just been given better information up front, if I'd been given a runway up front to be able to check the opportunity, we could have crushed that demo. But because of poor planning and poor communication of what we really needed to show, it was excruciating.
Well, did you get another chance, or was that it?
It really knocked that deal sideways for a little while. It didn't kill the deal. We did eventually get it, but I can't prove it, but I'm pretty sure that it was partially why that deal got extended for an additional quarter and why the level of proof we needed to bring into that sales cycle was higher by the end of it. I can't prove it.
I guarantee it did not accelerate that sales cycle.
It did not accelerate. It was not a mission accomplished. It was not high fives all around at the end of that one. No, it was like we survived. It was more of a survival exercise.
Sure. Yeah. Just if you can get asked back, sometimes that's all you can do. Right.
Right.
So,
Right.
Yeah. So even when things go awry, the best thing to do is, just say, hey, I'm sorry, fall on the sword, whatever you need to do, and just see if you can get back. And, sometimes people appreciate that as well. But yeah, you're definitely not setting yourself up for success. I think to start this whole conversation, though, let's talk about what a demo is and what it's used for and what it should be used for in an enterprise sales cycle, because demos are part of the business. If you're selling a software solution or some sort of tech solution, people want to see it. They want to understand, how does it work? What does it look like? And a lot of times too, they want to get their hands on it, which is another thing around POCs and strategies around there. Let's just talk about the demo part, right? Because a lot of times it's used differently in different organizations, and it makes sense based upon the complexity of your solution. But the whole thing around just show them the basic demo is problematic, right? Unless you have a very specific point solution that does one thing and there's one demo, then yeah, you can show them that. But a lot of what we've been selling over the years, more platform plays where there's any number of areas that you go into, any number of use cases and things. So being able to target the right one and start the conversation in the right area is really critical. And sometimes the onus is on the SE to ask those questions when you start the demo, right? It's like, tell me a little bit about what you do and what you care about, right? And sometimes just asking that question before you launch into it can alter the entire course of your demo. And hopefully you have something teed up for that. But let's talk about what a demo is and what it's for.
Well, I've always said that, and I think you have very similar thoughts on this front than I do, just based on what you just said. I think you can see it. You can see the alignment. I always look at a demo as a proving exercise. It's as much of an opportunity for us to get more discovery, to show off the capabilities of our solution. But by the time a pre-sales person usually has been being involved in doing a presentation, we know something about what the customer needs. That's already been collected by the salesperson. It's already been articulated, and it's part of what we're trying to present to in that meeting based on all the things you talked about. Why do people want to have a demo of a solution? So that being the case, the pre-sales person in particular is very much on the hook for matching up what that solution can do to what we've understood the challenges or the objectives of that customer to be. It's challenging because you're still in sort of the discovery phase, which is why, to your point, pre-sales person has to be asking, has to be validating constantly through that. But make no mistake, it is the first of a series of proving exercises that you need to go through.
Yeah. And I think if you think about, the different types of demos as well, there is a case where on a discovery call, you need to show a little something. And usually it's not the SC. I think that's the AE and some slides, right? That's the perfect example. Well, I don't understand what you do. Can you just show me something, right? And there's a case for that, right? But I think that's where a can demo, which goes through just one use case. Here's an example of this. They can knock through it in 5 minutes or less. And they, oh, I get it. All right. Would you want to see something more more detail and more custom to your specific use cases? Yeah, absolutely. And then that's when they get the SE involved, right? And then that we do that. But when they have the SE and they just show them the basic demo, right? That's really not a recipe for success there. There's also demos like at a trade show, right? Where I mean, literally it is the basic demo. But if you got a good SE and you have a platform or a demo system, I should say, that's set up, they can go down a couple different paths easily, from a common starting point. You're always in that solution because you're just trying to understand quickly, what do you care about? Let me show you that. I got 3 minutes to interest you, and then we get your contact information and go from there, right? That's also a use case. I think the most common demo we're talking about is you've done some discovery, done some qualification, you understand a little bit what the use case is. The SE is either on or not on that call. I always like to be on that call if possible, but it doesn't always work that way. But then the AE gives you the notes and say, okay, we have this demo, this is what we're going to do, et cetera. And then you have a chance to either customize it or think about the structure or the different flow that you're going to do to deliver the demo. And the next meeting, let's say it's an hour-long meeting, 40 minutes of that is going to be dedicated to demo, at least, right? Typically.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. But, you don't want the demo to go long. We'll talk about that as well. But yeah, that the whole goal of that is the demo. And that is really the process where you're getting buy-in from that prospect that they want to move forward. And I think that's what you said. It's a proving exercise. It's proving the next point. They already agree with some of the value points that you've made, that the AE's made about why the solution would help them, et cetera. Now they want to kind of see it in action. And, the demo is not to show, it's not a training thing, right? You're not there to show them everything about the platform and how it works and this thing does that. And it's like, they don't care, right? And that's one of the things we'll talk about in terms of, a feature function demo that just goes in the weeds of stuff that just are irrelevant and doesn't matter, right? You're not training them how to use it. You're showing them value. And really it's a transfer of ownership, right? Ideally, you want prospect or whoever you're demoing to look at that and say, oh, I can see myself using that and I can see it making my life or my job better, easier, whatever it happens to be. Right. So I think those are the main goals of most demos. Then there's also a follow-up demo where maybe they have very specific use cases and they need to get a little bit more technically focused on some things. And you go in and do that as a follow-up. So we can talk about strategies for all those. But I think when we're talking about demos in general, it's that first demo where you really have the chance not only to wow them, but to help them really understand how this solution is going to help them accomplish the things they need to accomplish.
Yeah, 100%. And, one of the things you had mentioned in there was on some of the follow-up demos, you sometimes have to get much deeper into the weeds. Now you've established you can solve the problem. Now there's going to be a group of people, because solving the problem, that's the business owners, that's their concern. They want to know that that can happen. Well, now there's the ancillary concerns around that, right? There's the adoptability of it within work practice in the organization, and does it fit the user's style? So now there's their needs that get brought to that conversation as well. But that's where you're going to go down more into what button do I press? What lever do I spin? That's where you get more into those technical specifics. Again, still a proving exercise, but its focus now is on a very different area of need to a different audience that hopefully is not the first one that you've been introed to as the pre-sales person in that deal. And I'm curious to your thoughts about this. Sometimes, and this is where I think is a sales execution issue, the pre-sales person gets pulled into that one prematurely. And that's where you end up having to do maybe your first demo. What are your thoughts on that? Because I've seen that happen. And this is something that I've tried to, when I was both, direct contributor in the field and when I was leading, was trying to establish, don't push for that to be your first demo. Have you seen that happen? And what are some of the things you've done to try and deflect that?
Yeah, I think with the demos, there's a bunch of different reasons why it's set up for, I don't say failure, but you're not set up the best for success, right?
Right.
One of them is you're demoing too soon, right? Before you qualify things, And it's like, and it's sometimes a sign of desperation. They can't get anything to land, right? And so they're like, well, let's just show it to you, then you'll get it, right? And so they're using the demo as kind of a selling mechanism, which I don't think is the most effective way to go around a sales
Oh, I
campaign,
agree
right?
wholeheartedly. Yeah.
Just throw a bunch of shit on the wall, so to speak, and then see what sticks, right? It's like, if they latch onto something, we'll pounce on it, right? That's not a really good strategy. The other thing that AE will do sometimes is they will not do enough discovery to uncover the things. Or if they do, they don't really convey it to you in a way that's meaningful, that you can actually build a compelling story, narrative, script as you're doing this. So you're left going kind of with the generic first approach thing and doing the demo by discovery by demo method, right? Where you're asking questions. It's like, does this resonate? How would you do this? And based upon that, go. But you have to know the platform really well. You have to have a lot of different paths you can go down from that. And as you know, we'll get to this in a bit, not all demo systems are set up, seamlessly where all the data is robust and every path leads to success, right?
Right.
Most of it, it's every click is a landmine. And, the last thing you want the AE to do is go, oh, click there and show them that. It's like,
you're like, no,
do not do that. That's where the entire system blows up. Right?
Yeah.
So there's that as well. And a lot of times the demos used, the worst thing I would hate as well is when the AE get on and say, all right, well, here we are. Glad you're on. Okay, we're going to go show you the demo. Kevin's the smart guy. Go. And that's it. No setup, no why we're here, what we're trying to show. It's like it's kind of using the SE as we're just going to show them the demo. That's just going to wow them. And they're just going to say, I got to have this. And let me ask you, how many times have you done a demo where that's been the result?
Too many times. And some people we've both worked with.
Well, no, I meant the result is the customer sees the demo or prospect sees the demo.
Oh, he gets wowed?
I got to have this.
Rarely. There's usually a lot of looks at you like, I think I get this. I mean, as I've gotten later on in my career, and I'm sure you've got the same, we've gotten a lot better at when we get thrown into the wolves that way. We know our solution really well. All right, we're going to do demo for discovery. I'm going to find one thing because we know the ICP, we have the persona of the person we're talking to. We can make some assumptions and hopefully we find something to hook into, right? And then start telling a compelling story inside of the demo based on some stuff that we do have ready to go. Sometimes you're not that lucky, right? And you are left hanging in the breeze. But it happens every once in a while. But, every there's the old saying, even a blind squirrel finds a nut every now and again. But it is so easy to avoid. It's so easy to prepare against that happening that it sometimes always strikes me as being particularly painful that you sometimes have to pull even really good salespeople aside and have the conversation with them, which is you gotta set me up better. You got to set us up better so that when we go in there, we're going to knock this out of the park and we're going to blow their socks off. Now, I'm sure you've got some horror stories around that too, but it's just
I mean, I think that's the thing too. It's like we all think that our technology is cool and there's a wow factor, et cetera. And sometimes there is. Sometimes there's sexy components of it that you like to show, and then the prospect literally will say wow, right? Mm-hmm. The little aside, the worst I hate is when they'll say wow or that's amazing, and then the A says, yeah, it's cool, huh? And then moves on instead of like, what's amazing about it? What do you like about it? How is that different than what you're doing? I mean, there's so much opportunity there, but I've seen it so many times. They're just like, yeah, we're just jazzed. They're like, they love it. Blah, blah. And then it's like, why didn't they buy? I don't get it. It's like, because people don't buy stuff because they're impressed by it. It has to have value. It's like, I watch like YouTube videos of guys doing like triple somersaults, just standing and doing that. It's like, that's amazing. Does that make me want to do it? No, I'm not going to do that. I could break my freaking neck. But I enjoy watching that. Same thing with demos, right? It's like, I watch it, but it's like, why would I spend, $200,000 on this?
No,
Yeah.
100%.
It's not a compelling reason. I do want to get into just a little bit about, what makes demos fail, other than the setup and all the things like that, and how that manifests itself, and then possible causes for that and things that could be remedied. We've talked a lot about, just kind of setting it up appropriately, making sure there's discovery, making sure that you're clear on the expectations and objectives of the call before you launch the demo, who the players are that are going to be watching the demo. That's a key one as well, right? Because you might emphasize different things based upon who's there, right? And also what the next steps are supposed to be, which is something that also gets neglected in demos because a lot of times they go long and then you have 30 seconds to wrap up, say, I got to go. It's like, okay, well, they're like, well, we'll talk internally and get back to you, right? Which is the worst thing you could do, right? So you always want to leave time at the end, to set appropriate next steps and to have next steps lined up. Often I've had the prospect ask, well, what's next? And then the AE's fumbling about what to do next, right? And it's like, so all these things are really critical for that demo delivery, right? And it's not just the demo, but the setup of the demo, how it's introed, how you go through it, the interplay through the demo, as well as the next steps and the closing of it. That's the whole demo. And it's an art and a skill, but it's also difficult to get it right and to make it resonate with every audience every time. And I've tried to tell this to AEs as well, because it's like, oh, you demo so well. Just let's demo to the next team. Let's demo to another team. Let's demo to another team. And I got to tell them, like, just so you know, I am good at demoing, but every demo we do is a risk. Risk that somehow I get on the wrong thing, or something doesn't work in the platform, or there's some naysayer in there that derails the whole thing. Every time I do a demo, it's risk. It's not a guaranteed slam dunk, no matter how good we are or things like that. So keep that in mind. You can't just go demoing nonstop across the organization, trying to get someone to bite or get consensus. That's really not a good strategy, because the demo could be, like you said, you could lose the deal on the demo, not win it.
Totally.
Right?
Totally.
So anyway, let's talk about some ways that demos are not good when these things are happening. The one we get most often, I think, is my SCs are smart and technical, but it's all feature function. It's really boring. And it's just it's not exciting, right?
Yeah.
So that's a common one. And there's ways that we can mitigate that. Other ones are, just the demo not being compelling. A lot of times it's not necessarily the fault of the SC or the demo script. It's that the demo environment just is not robust. It doesn't have real data in it. I can't tell you how many times you're selling like to a B2B company, right? That's looking for lead gen and trials and stuff like that. And you're showing them an e-commerce site. And you're wondering why they're not, and the A is wondering why they're not getting it, because it has nothing to do
with their business.
Make the leap. It's like, no, don't make them make a leap. Make it easy for them, right? They're just trying to understand what you do. They don't want to have to like iterate 3 times to figure out, oh, this is how it applies to my business. You want to show them exactly how it applies to their business, right?
Totally.
That's another thing. What are some other things though that you've heard in terms of a bad demo or it's not gone well? Right?
Well, I think, to start with, let's talk about what makes up a good demo really quickly. Let's talk about the very, big animal pictures headings.
Yeah.
It has to be compelling, right? So it means it needs to speak to something that's meaningful inside of their business, the reason why they're even looking at solutions in the first place. And it has to be doing it in a way that matches very closely the things that matter most. Compelling, number one. It needs to be relevant. And this thing you were just talking about, why are you showing banking solution to people who are in retail? It has to be relevant to their industry so that it has the use cases, context, and everything that matters to those people that they can understand so they can put themselves in that moment. And the third thing it needs to be is it needs to be technically stable, and it needs to showcase just how rock solid the solution is from an architectural perspective. If it's integrating with stuff, the integrations need to work, or at least appear that they're working. If it's mocked up, that's a different story. But it needs to look like it's absolutely solid. So it needs to be compelling, it needs to be relevant, and it needs to be stable and run smoothly. If any of those things fail, the demo has the chance of completely coming off the rails, right? So you were just talking a moment ago about, the fact that there was a lack of relevance and a lack of it being compelling. And all three of them you've kind of hit on if you think about it at some point. And the other things I've seen is that the environment just isn't flexible enough. Two things on this side. First of all, it's not flexible enough to create anything in beyond what's already been pre-populated, because it's so hard to mimic and artificially inject the data into that world that creating anything that's relevant or compelling to them is excruciatingly hard and takes forever to do. That's one of the reasons why I've seen a number of different demo environments fail. And some people try to get around that by going to a completely mocked up world. And that creates a different problem where now it's very easy and very quickly detected that I'm looking at a simulation. I cannot validate the technical readiness or viability of this as an observer because what I'm looking at is a complete mock-up. If you're into full-on proving exercises with what are supposed to be custom demos, if you're doing complete mock-ups because that's the only way you can do it in your solution, you're probably going to run into a few challenges, because why would I trust that your solution's real? How does it really perform? Whether or not it's something I can bring into my environment if what I'm looking at is not even that solution at all.
Right, which is why the POC ratio per deal goes up, right?
Way up.
Because it's like, I got to see this. I got to see it in action, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think, there's a skill set, right, as an SC, where you can make mocked up things look real, right? And that's the art and a little bit of the magic of very seasoned SC. But if they really press you, it's like, is this real? It's like, no, this is a mock up. But it doesn't matter. You could tell them the truth, but while they're watching it, that's gone from their mind. They're not questioning this. They're just following the story, right? So that's exactly the skill of a good SE. The problem, though, is, we've both faced this in recent jobs where, there's different systems that have different aspects that demo well. I would have logged into 6 completely different systems, that I got to keep track of. I got like 10 tabs open. I know which one goes where. And if I need to go down further, I have to remember which system will allow me to do that. It is so much to keep in your mind, and this is a pretty, not sophisticated, but, pretty mature company, right? With a lot of resources, but still, this is what we're dealing with, right? And so, and you got to tell and the AEs wonder why, this is a problem. It's like, look, at any point, I could pick that wrong tab because I got off somewhere and go down and it's like, oh, it's not here. And then you get the fumbling. Oh, wait, let me check that. And the whole thing just starts getting wonky, right? So I think when we're looking at it, certainly that demo environment, and there's been a lot of different approaches, but that's, when we're looking at how to improve demos, a lot of times after seeing the demo, I start questioning, well, why did you show that? Or why didn't you show this? And then you start understanding, it's like, well, I can't show that because we don't have anything to show in that area. It's like, well, can you mock something up and just pull up that screen and start there, right? So these are all techniques we've used. We can talk about ways to kind of streamline this process and to deal with it. But I mean, but sometimes you keep asking these questions and it really leads up to, it's like, we really don't have a system to demo off of, right? We don't have a good data set that's real, or even representative of what a real data set looks like. So we're demoing things that are just features. It's not a solution. It's not telling a compelling story. There's no path of where we're going. It's just like, here's something, here's something, here's something. Now put it all together and you get this. And it's like, yeah, but you got to believe me, right? Instead of showing them. So sometimes, but don't get me wrong. I mean, trying to create a robust demo system with real-time data that's going in there, refreshing, that matches your key verticals, that's not a trivial task.
No, it's not.
Right? But
I've done it a couple
if you do it right, and the ARR or the ACV is high enough, right? Then it absolutely makes it worthwhile, because you're going to close more deals faster, less POCs, more trust and belief early on in the sales cycle, and your demo is really doing what it's doing. It's like
Absolutely.
helping them understand and proving that this solution can help them, right? And then sometimes you can do, let's just do a guided, custom demo where you get to go on there. We can poke and stuff like that, and then avoid the POC altogether, right? Things like that. But having something like that gives you the ability to create that type of sales cycle, right? Where you can definitely accelerate things.
Yeah, and no question. Again, we're right down to those three things, right? It's compelling, it's relevant, and it's technically convincing, right? It's got all those elements there. That's unfortunately, in some respects, for some solutions that can be nirvana, because for some solutions, there are a lot of reasons. We kind of hit on when it doesn't happen, but why doesn't that happen? Why can't you create that in some of these environments? So for some environments, they're predicated on using real world data that comes from some sort of real site that has to have real transactional activity taking place in order for it to populate. Well, that can be very difficult to simulate for some solutions, depending on what it's collecting. The other reason why that can be difficult is if you're in an organization that is moving very, very quickly and is constantly transforming their solution and constantly innovating with new features, and it's a very aggressive release schedule, that could completely break everything you've built for that demo environment. Say you managed to crack the code on the first one, you collected all the data, you got the stories, you've got the stuff in there so you can baseline everything. Well, bringing in a new feature can break all that.
Yeah.
And now everything that you've pre-populated no longer works because you never built that new feature's data into the equation. So there's a gaping hole in how that presents inside of a demo. So there's a lot of things that can break on that front as well. Now, talking about that one in specific, because I've lived this nightmare for a number of different companies, it could be really, really hard to do. Generally speaking, it's not one person that can maintain these. This ends up something that has to be a collaboration between marketing, between product marketing, between the product team. Sometimes even infrastructure and support, pre-sales needs to get involved so that the right stories are being told and populated with the data that will make sure that those can be told. But at the same time, you're aware of what the roadmap is, and people that are on that team that are building it are engaged with it. So they know when something, they can look 6 months down the road and go, by the way, this is all going to change in 6 months. Okay, let's start populating that data now, so we don't end up with a hole when that ends up getting
Yeah.
released.
And how often does that happen? I would say
Not as often as
never.
it should, but it is an internal discipline. I would strongly encourage people that are trying to do this to try. Like I said, I've lived this nightmare.
Yeah.
At 2 or 3 different companies that I've worked at.
Yeah, they should definitely involve the SE team and sales enablement in this process, just so they can be apprised of what's coming down the pike and also suggest things that they should populate with, et cetera. Because often I find that, product's doing stuff and product marketing's doing stuff, and then, the sales enablement's doing stuff, and they've not consulted with the SEs at all. And all of a sudden they spring it on. Here's the solution. Here's all the cool stuff. Here's how you demo it. And then the SE goes in there, this is crap, man. I can't show anything in here.
Can't show
right?
any of this.
And
exactly.
It's like, why didn't you ask us, the people that are actually demoing this, how to do this? But so the environment is obviously, that's a very big stone to move, right? But a critical one, depending upon your industry, your solution, and what kind of data you need to show. The other thing, though, is just the actual data that's in there. We talked about that. But then the ability to customize that demo in a way that, first, doesn't screw up everyone else that's demoing, right? But secondly, makes it more relevant. I mean, there's so many times where I've seen people, they're demoing something and it has like a mapping of the navigation on their site. But what they're showing has nothing to do with the navigation on the prospect site. It's like, okay, imagine this is this, imagine this is this, this is it. It's like, if you had the ability to just change the top labels so it matched what exact was on their site, guess what? That immediately avoids all that doubt and questioning and confusion about, what am I looking at? What is this? Like, oh no, that's my site. I get it. And then you go from there. Now, further on, if things don't line up, it's okay. But it's like the more you can actually make it look exactly like them without having to explain stuff, that's really a key component too. So is your demo customizable enough where you can change labels or change a little bit of the structure or rename, if they call it the basket instead of the cart, just rename it the basket. Don't make them think, right?
Right.
The less they have to think about things, the better. You just want them to just kind of follow you without just questioning in their mind the whole time of what's going on. So that's another thing as well. It's just that not only the data, but also making sure you can customize it in a way, right?
One of the other things I think that is very necessary about that for the customization and for the initial baseline you build that you customize off of, and not a lot of organizations think to do it. They need to bring services and customer success into the initial planning. How do people really use this? What's the most common manifestations that are reflected in our case studies? Those need to be there for two reasons. One, it gives a very easy thing for sales enablement to teach the salespeople during their onboarding and training to use as that preliminary demo that establishes credibility and gets the conversation going to get good discovery. But it also gives you a cleaner baseline to start building off of when you do customize, because it does reflect the reality of a number of different customers and the types of systems that they have. So it's, to your point, you're trying to, these people that are, by the way, I've had software sold to me a number of times because when I'm leading different teams, and it's excruciatingly painful to be sitting there trying to understand someone's demo if it doesn't reflect anything even remotely linked to your reality. It's painful because now I have to listen to your jargon. I have to listen to what you're trying to tell me. I have to watch all these buttons you're pressing, and I have to do the calculus in my head to match what you're doing to my problem. And everything that you're showing me is throwing me off because none of it's relevant to me. Why would you ever do that to a sales prospect, right? Make it easy for them. So to your point, bringing that part of the conversation in up front can really give you a big leap forward, an upper hand on what after the level of effort it'll be to do the customizations later on.
Yeah. So I think being able to customize the content in meaningful ways, right? Sometimes there's integrations that they want to see. Have an example of the integration, right? I mean, whatever you can do just to show them, something they care about is really critical. The problem though is, a lot of times there's so many things to show them. It's like, the key with demos, I think, is less is more. It's contrary because, a lot of times SEs and AEs even, they want to show them everything, show them every bell and whistle. This is cool. Show them that. It's like, what, why are we showing them that? It's all it's going to make it look like is like, there's so much stuff. I'm not ready for this. Right. And how many times have you gotten this? Your solution, it's clearly you guys have a really robust solution. It does a whole bunch of things. I just don't think we're quite ready to adopt something like this. Right. Because you made it too complicated. Right. So that they qualify themselves out, as opposed to you showed them three things. It's like, we do those three things. I can do those three things. Let's go. And then later on, you can have discussions like, oh, by the way, is this important as well? You can add it on. But if you throw them everything at the beginning, people are overwhelmed, right? It's just like bullet points on a slide, right? You try to limit it to 3, right? 5 max. Same thing with demos. 3 use cases, maybe 5 if the other ones are very simple, but that's it, right? You don't show all the features. You just show them how your solution helps them accomplish that goal, right? They don't have to know, oh, and here you can do 10 different things. Let me go through all 10 of them. You're like, oh my God, right? So that's part of the script creation and just helping you understand, what the flow should be. And that's also something you can train an SC to do as well, right? To keep it simple. Absolutely. But you also need to train the AEs to stop interjecting and tell them to show stuff, right? Because that should have been done prior. That's not done in the meeting, right? Unless there's some big thing that you got already pre-agreed upon that the SC forgot to show. Then you tell them, right?
Right,
but,
exactly.
So I think we talked about some of the things to consider, but how do you fix it? What's the approach? And I think that's the question people have. I have all these problems. I can hear people say, I got all these problems that you have. Where do I start? What do I do first? Because sometimes it just seems overwhelming. I don't have time to revamp the entire demo system. I mean, it has to be done. where do I start? So if someone was listening to us right now and said, I have these problems, what do I do first? What would you say to them?
Well, first and foremost, I tell them to contact us because we've done this a million times. We can walk people through this. And I will say that if it feels like it's a daunting task, it's because it can be, if not properly addressed. The first place that I always start whenever I'm doing an assessment of this type is I start in the field first to find out, okay, generally speaking, you don't get marketing telling you you've got a bad demo system, generally not where it's coming from. It's either coming from the services team, it's coming from the sales team. That's generally where you're hearing about it from. So reach out to them and understanding those three pillars. What's wrong with it? Why is it not enabling you to close deals? What elements are missing? And then start to document that and start to break down, what is it and what area am I focusing on? Is it data? Is it the customizability of that and the ability to manipulate it? Or is it the stability of it and in my ability to go and make it look effortless as I'm going through? Tell me what things are wrong. I guarantee you, if you're experiencing that pain, that question's going through your mind right now, it's more than one or two things. It will be a lot. And then figure out what needs to get addressed from that perspective. And now you need to go internally and ask the exact same questions, bringing that list with you and going, which of these can we fix? Which of these are the lightest lift to make the biggest impact? And then just like any project, how do we attack them? I know you've been out in the field with the receiving end of it. What are some of the things that you would want us asking you from the inside, on the ivory tower? What should they be asking the people out in the field? What kinds of data points should they be looking for?
Well, I think the comment you made earlier about getting customer success involved and things like that is really critical, because even as SEs, a lot of times we understand the use cases, we're selling them, but we're not there for the implementation and the adoption and all these types of things. And I always wanted to check with the PS people, professional services people, about, how are people using it? Just this customer, you say this customer is one of our top customers in terms of usage and adoption, and they're doing some really cool things. Show me what they're doing. Then based upon that, I will take that information and build it into the demo or build it into the stories I tell in terms of the value you're getting. So we do have a good sense as to how the platform's used, but I always like the actual hands-on. How are the people using it on a database? Because a lot of times we're selling the vision, and we're kind of evangelizing this thing, et cetera. But at the end of the day, it could be just this really simple thing that they do on a daily basis. It gets the most value. And let's not poo-poo that, right? That is the value. And, you build that in as well. So that gives you credibility as you are demoing and talking about how this is used. And you're transferring that ownership to them. A lot of customers want to start off here, but let me tell you exactly where they get the value. And the value is actually in these simple things that they do on a day-to-day basis that saves them time. It gets much more accurate results and allows them to take action much more quickly. That's a compelling story. All this other stuff aside, we do have customers that have gotten there and are using all this stuff. But even if you're able to just implement one or two of these different features in the course, how would that change things? And then you start that conversation. So when enablement and marketing come to me, I try to impart those sort of things. It's like, look, you have all this pie in the sky stuff, but I need very tangible things. I need a dashboard I can go to where I can just sit there and tell a story of what's going on. It's like, look, you see that this is going up right here. Let's drill into that to find out. That is so compelling. And a lot of times they don't do that. They have all the features there. There's no glue tying it together. So the SE is in charge of trying to create this glue and this compelling story. And if they had just asked me ahead of time, what do you need in there to really do a compelling demo? I would tell them, I need this story that says this data that goes in this direction. That's what I need. And if they can create it for me, great. I'd say most of the time, 4 out of 5 times, I'm the one creating it. But it would be great if they consulted with me, and asked me that ahead of time. As I think about, what you can fix in demos and things like that, I mean, a lot of what's done for the SE team is we'll send you to training, how to demo better, how to present better, all this, which is great. I mean, I think SEs and anyone could always take more training on how to be more effective in presentations and communicate better. That's a skill you should always keep working on. But a lot of times, I mean, you could be the best presenter in the world. If you got garbage to present, it's still not going to land, right? Right. I mean, you're still struggling to piece together something which is crap. And no matter how good you are at articulating it, the end result is you're showing them a bunch of crap that you're just trying to spin appropriately, which is a hard thing to do. And again, leads to longer sales cycle, POC, a lot of POCs, et cetera. So, when I'm approaching it from the field in an SE perspective, and I was never really tasked with creating whole demo systems like you were, right? But I was tasked with selling stuff. And so whatever I do, and whenever I've stumbled across something that I try to share it with the rest of the SE team, of course. But there are simple things like this dashboard I created, this one page to start with, and this one notification, anything like that, which really resonates that people say, yeah, okay, I get it. And then it takes you to the next step. So it usually was a combination of the data I had on the screen and then the specific flow I would go through. And it was usually pretty simple. This screen to that screen, talk about this to that screen, talk about that to that screen. Done. That's the first narrative. And I would always like to I like slides as a way to just anchor a demo. Because the other problem you get with demos, right, is the fact that you go on for 40 minutes. God hope that you stop and pause and ask questions and dig in. But I've seen just people talk for 40 minutes. It's like, what do you think? At the end, you're like, well, okay. But here's one use case we're going to go over. This is the value, this persona, let's do it. And I go back to it. That was the use case. Any questions? And okay, let's go to the next one, right? So it's not a lot of slides, but just it anchors it and allows you also to, if you're sharing the recording afterwards, you can say, go to this section here for this use case. So it's a nice way to kind of break up your demo into digestible chunks as well. I don't expect marketing or sales enablement to do that, but at least give you the list of the use cases. So allow you to pull those out and chunk it up yourself in any order you need to for that particular customer. Yeah. Those are also things that are very effective, I found.
And it's funny you would bring that up because you know what? You get a lot of bang for your buck out of having done that. So first and foremost, it's a great thing to do because it's something you could bring into product and to marketing so that they can help you prepare for the redesign and the data that you're trying to populate and make it easier for you to go and do stuff like that. But also for you being the presenter out in the field, it's something for you to prep easier with the salespeople that you're going to be prepping with, particularly if you're going to have like a third party joining you from your side that you don't normally sell with, that gives them something they can, ramp up their understanding of what you're going to be talking about and how you're going to be talking about it. And third, getting to technical viability. In reality, occasionally things go south and a system will go down. So what, you're just not going to talk at all? You're just going to stand there and make hand puppets in front of the screen? I mean, that's not going to happen. You've got a backup way of being able to show that. Plus, you're pre-built for leave behinds and returns you can do to the people that were participating. Hey, we talked about this. Here's some screenshots from that. If you're needing to either solicit more feedback, get validation, or give them something to co-sell for with you when they go back to their departments. But it can also be a really handy thing if you start running out of time. Like, you were talking about they get on the wah-wah train and they start wandering off. Now, the actual person with the power to actually make a decision walks in for 5 minutes to talk to the person you're presenting to. And you've got 10 minutes left in the demo and you got a whole use case. You could, let me just show you the way this works. And you give them enough of an understanding that they can make the checkbox. They know that you're cutting corners to show this to them, but you can communicate so much more now in that 3 to 5 minutes that you've got that person in the room before the timer runs out than you ever would be trying to actually walk through the solution de facto, right? So there's so much bang for your buck in doing that tactic you just described.
Yeah. And I think, thinking back over our careers, when I started doing this, I mean, there were no internet connections, right? there barely MiFis were out, right? Or Wi-Fi. So a lot of times you had to go to a conference room. You had to try to connect to the Ethernet cable, so you had all the different cable connectors and dongles and stuff to make sure that happened. Right. And then you had to try to connect to their overhead projector, right? And then sometimes that projector was like just SVGA, and yours only works on like XVGA. Okay? So it's like there are different resolutions. So I remember back in the day, we'd show up with our own projector that we carry. When I had the chance with my own Wi-Fi, when they started coming out, we invested in that because you couldn't be guaranteed that you get on the network. They didn't have Wi-Fi at that time. It was very rare. So, and a lot of times you couldn't actually plug into the network for security reasons. So there's that. And then even when you did connect, it was so slow that sometimes it just spin there. Other times we'd had VMware running with a whole like enterprise software on that disk, right? That's running on your low processor laptop, which is about 500 degrees because it's spinning so hard. And you're just hoping that the thing doesn't start smoking in the middle of the meeting and that it's still going to run. Today, all that's gone. I mean, almost everything is SaaS you're selling. You have a fast internet connection. You get on their Wi-Fi's like that. You have access to this stuff. The projections are good. Everyone's doing, screen share. Half of people are screen share anyway. All that stuff is down. So the technical hurdles that we had to go through, there's still some, but it's like not like it was. So there's no excuse technically not to have a good demo these days. Right. I mean, so really it's about all the back end stuff and the infrastructure and then the story flow and the preparation and things that are really critical. And I think those are the areas. There's still a lot to cover. And that's why I think, if you have questions and if you do want to improve your demos, if you do think they're lackluster or could use improvement or not really converting or accomplishing what you want them to, well, give us a call or contact us. We'll be happy to just walk through it and talk with you about, what you're trying to do. We can even do an assessment of what you have. We can watch a few demos. We can look at your win-loss rates and understand, which ones you should be focusing on in terms of use cases and things like that. That's absolutely something that we can help with. When you do that, hopefully you'll start seeing that you'll have shorter sales cycles because it'll be a lot more compelling when you do show them things. And it helps just accelerate the conversation as opposed to slowing it down. And also, of course, higher win rates with that, less POCs. There's a ton of advantages of having a good demo and a good demo system and a good demo script and people that are educated and it can demo easily with the content you have that's going to be relevant to your audience.
Well, absolutely. I completely agree. So we're coming up on the end of our session here. So, maybe might be worth it for a moment for us to let's quickly take stock of all the different things we've been talking about today. Because we brought up a lot of points here, about the demo, how to make it better and why that's hard and so on and so forth. So maybe, do you want to take us through a quick summary of what we've been talking about today?
Sure. I mean, first off, demos are a critical part of the sales cycle for any technology or software solution. There's a time you're going to have to show them the product. So you want to put the best foot forward when you do that. There's a bunch of different times that you do demo, and there's different types of demos you're going to be delivering. But the most common is getting them interested, validating the use cases and the things they're trying to solve. That's what the demo is really about. It's not showing them everything. It's validating that the solution you have can solve the problems that they've articulated and for uncovering other problems that they may not have articulated yet or they don't know about. That's a good demo. And it moves the sales cycle along, give a clear next step. Maybe you give another one as well, but it's not something that you just throw out there haphazardly, right? It's something that's an integral, a strategic part of the sales process that requires a lot of thought. And when done right, it can work wonders for your sales cycle. There's a bunch of reasons why a demo could be bad. It can go all the way up to you just don't have a good environment to demo off of, and that's something you need to fix. You don't have good data that's relevant to your audiences. You're telling them stories that are completely unrelated to what they do. You're showing them a banking app when what they do is they're an e-commerce site or vice versa, right? So these are things that you can fix hopefully as well. And the scripts you're telling, you're showing them too much, right? You're not showing them things that have any resolution at the end. You're not showing them things that they care about. These are all problems with the demo as well. That could be fixed with proper scripts and a little bit of analysis about who you're targeting. And then there's also the presentation skills, of course, teaching your SEs to be more dynamic if they're not, teaching them to integrate stories into that, teaching them to pause and ask good questions, having the AE actually engaged instead of just like, here's Kevin, shut off the video and let them talk for an hour, right? That's not good selling either. So those are things you can do. And then how to fix it, there's certain resources and people like ourselves, who've been doing this a long time, you can certainly reach out to. We can give you some guidance as to things we think you should prioritize. We can even help do the work for you or whatever you need to do, but start somewhere. There's no reason today why you should be giving bad demos. Absolutely none. And so whatever the fix is, we can help you identify that, but start working on it today. You deserve better. Your prospects deserve better, and your pocketbook is going to feel better when you're selling more deals because your demos are more compelling. So that's my summary of it. I don't know if you want to add anything, Kevin.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's okay to reach out for help, folks, because when you start to look at the problem, if it feels like there's a lot of moving parts, there are. So don't be afraid to reach out and reach out for help, whether it's to Matt and I or to somebody else. But do take the time. To Matt's point, you guys deserve it, and the benefits far outweigh the effort. So it's definitely an investment in future success. So take that leap.
Okay. Well, hey, thanks everyone for listening to us this week. Don't forget to subscribe, follow, like, whatever it happens to be on the particular platform of choice. And if you have other ideas as to things you'd like us to cover, please let us know in the comments or reach out to us and let us know. We're going to be joined next week again by another guest, but we hope that you found this demo session helpful because this is something very near and dear to our hearts. And any way that we can help share some of our experience with you would be great. All right.
Take care.
Until next week.
Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Kevin.